I'll show you. In essence, the way that this would work in an operation, or as we have seen many teams use it, is that the point man, who normally would be the person entering a doorway or crossing obstruction or exposing himself to danger, potentially putting civilians at risk, also can line up. Each team has their own tactics, techniques, and procedures for communicating the deployment of the robot. But the person behind can simply unzip the robot packet, turns on the switch. Now, what you would do up front would be to pull the pin on the robot, ask me if I have signal.
Do you have signal?
I have signal. Deploy the robot, and then you would say deploying the robot.
Deploying the robot.
And now, instead of you having to kick down the door, we can see who's inside of space. In this case, if there's a civilian, we now know that there would be innocent lives at risk that we wouldn't want to jeopardize. So this technology saves lives every day all over the world, and this, in essence, is a very rough way of looking at how it works.
Tell me a little bit about the Throwbot and about your company.
Sure. Well, the Throwbot is a 1.2-pound throwable reconnaissance robot. This particular model, the Throwbot XT, has a titanium case, is water resistant, has a bubble with infrared emitters that will allow it to see in the dark. It's used by tactical security teams, law enforcement, and warfighters the world over. Nearly 5,000 systems are deployed with approaching 700 law enforcement security agencies.
And what's the, this is not a hypothetical, theoretical piece of equipment. It's a piece of equipment that our forces and other forces are using. Who uses it and for what?
It's employed by law enforcement. Standard police use would be situations like a barricaded suspect, any situation where officers need to see what's happening around a corner, behind a wall. The current version of the Throwbot XT also allows for audio surveillance and reconnaissance, allowing them to get a picture of developing situations that normally would be outside of their sight and hearing. It's also used by military forces in any number of missions. Particularly, we're seeing growth in counterterrorism missions.
Should we take it for a spin around Brookings?
Sure.
All right.
Turn it on.
Okay.
There you go. Pull the pin, and there we go. We're up. If you want to open the door, I'll throw it out the door. And then you just drive forward to right the robot.
Okay. So how fast does it go?
22 decibels, which is about the volume of a library whisper. And tested to 1.5 feet per second.
What's the range?
300 feet line of sight, so that would be unobstructed. And we estimate 100 to 150 feet indoors, subject to the strength of the interference, whether it's the depth of the wall, thickness of materials, that kind of thing.
Well, we're going to go visit Darrell West here, who's sitting at his desk. Let's see. Darrell West is the vice president of Brookings for governance studies. Let's see.
Red alert. How you doing, little buddy? You don't have any heat-fired missiles.
Just for the record, Andrew, no one's ever tried to arm one of these things, right?
No, we are a life-saving company. We are in the reconnaissance, surveillance, and life-saving technology space.
How much do they cost, and how many of them have been sold? Tell me a little bit about the company and sort of how you guys came to make this tiny little thing that soldiers and cops can throw and get reconnaissance from.
Sure. Well, the original Throwbot was born of a Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, or DARPA, program at the University of Minnesota, Laboratory for Robotics. In 2006, a number of the students working on that project formed a company to start producing the robots, and in 2007, the first commercial Throwbot was introduced to the market. And since that time, this system here that you're seeing, the Throwbot XT, sells for about $14,000. And as I said, we are now approaching 5,000 systems deployed or under contract around the world with U.S., and international law enforcement and military forces.
So what would be a plausible non-security use of the Throwbot?
I foresee the Throwbot and small systems like it moving into all kinds of spaces where people need to get eyes, ears, or senses into spaces that are either uncomfortable, dirty, or dangerous for humans. The entire purpose of a throwable robot is that it is usable by dismounted troops. The traditional reconnaissance robot platforms that we've seen evolve in the last decade are very heavy. They offload from vehicles. They weigh upwards of 100 to 150 pounds. This particular robot was designed under DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, in the early 2000s, meant to allow dismounted foot mobile troops the ability to see across behind walls and into situations, again, like I said, where it will protect their lives and the lives of civilians.
And what, you know, when you say it's throwable, what does that mean? I mean, you know, it is a piece of high-tech electronic equipment. What can it survive and what can't it survive in a tactical situation? In
terms of why this is a tactical piece of equipment as opposed to a toy or, you know, a throwable remote control device, is that with a titanium shell, aircraft aluminum chassis, and integrated robotic sensors and systems, it survives throws of upwards of 30 feet onto concrete. It survives throws of upwards of 120 to 150 feet across the ground, and operates up to 300 feet from the user by line of sight, up to 100 to 150 feet indoors. So really, it's a force multiplier for any dismounted security or military personnel.
We're in Bill Galston's office here now, which, as you can see, is an area with it's a hostile environment, actually.
It's a good thing the robot can
scout it out.
Can scout out and handle at least a 2-inch threshold on some of those piles. It's good.
When we think of night special forces raids in Afghanistan, are they coming up on compounds, taking one of those things, throwing them in, checking out what's going on before they go in? Is that actually a sort of realistic common use of it?
Absolutely. And not just in places like Afghanistan or Iraq or places where there are deployments in Africa. I think increasingly we are seeing this deployed in conventional law enforcement applications, as I mentioned, where you would have any type of situation where there's a barricaded suspect, frequently in domestic situations. Police can save lives by seeing in advance what the situation is before entry. We know that it was used in a number of European counterterrorism raids. We also know that domestically in the United States, it's used by upwards of hundreds of tactical teams in situations where, again, the suspect is barricaded or a situation where they might normally have to break down a door or deploy CS gas. This robot saves a lot of damage and risk to human life.
There's Bill Galston. It's pretty astonishing. I mean, it's amazingly easy to navigate it, you know, even without visual contact.
Well, this what you're experiencing is a lot of intense engineering work over the past decade by the team that builds this system. Most of the robotic systems that are deployed, certainly for security and military use, are extremely complicated, and the operator needs to go to school for sometimes upwards of months to learn to operate the system efficiently and effectively. This system is different. It works intuitively. You obviously picked up the operator control unit and have been very successfully driving a reconnaissance and surveillance mission on your office floor with little to no training.
Let's go visit Christine Jacobs. Christine is our is the director of public relations for governance studies here at Brookings.
Oh my God.
It's too bad the interns are all at Friday lunch, or we would go terrorize them. We've just attacked Alan Friedman, our cybersecurity expert.
How fitting.
Let's see if we can. I'm stuck. Oh, wait a minute. He's picked it up.
You've been abducted. You learn something very important, and this is an important point. Is that was an early question many customers had. It was, it's very
Ritika,
small.
tell him to throw it.
But again, we now, if we wanted to know what was happening in his office, or if someone was in his office, we learned very important information without having to knock down a door.
And who are, I mean, you say law enforcement and military clients are the principal clients. Are they, mostly U.S. military, or mostly, are a lot of foreign clients? Who don't you sell it to?
The early adopters of the system were law enforcement in the U.S. A lot of tactical teams adopted it, similarly to the expansion of things like SAPI plates for protection in bulletproof vests. When they are seen and used by tactical users, they're proven as a proof of concept. The U.S. military then subsequently asked for robots, seeing how it would save troops' lives and how it would save civilian lives in active theaters of combat. Several thousand robots were sold to the U.S. military, and increasingly we're seeing the international footprint expand with U.S.-friendly forces around the world.
So, Andrew, on a personal note, you have a personal story that I think will be fascinating to a lot of viewers of this. You're a robotics executive. You're also an ex-Marine. You're also a national security lawyer who, does a lot of work with the Standing Committee. How does one go from national security law to being a robotics exec for ReconRobotics?
Well, like many things in life, 90% of success is showing up. I think Woody Allen said that. This company happens to be headquartered in my hometown of Edina, Minnesota. And I was reading an article while I was doing some program management for another Fortune 500 company with the intelligence community on how this technology was revolutionizing SWAT tactics in the Wall Street Journal. So I had a phone call with the CEO, Alan Bignall, and met with some of the engineers and senior executives at the company. I am a believer that this is going to save lives, and it's going to revolutionize the way that tactical teams and dismounted infantry operate.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.